So you've been wanting to get into Legend Story Studios' Flesh and Blood card game for a while now, but you're not really sure where to start. Maybe you have a background in Magic the Gathering or Pokemans, or maybe you're just a good old-fashioned Yu-Gi boy. Regardless of whichever background you come from, you see this game and it looks really cool, looks really interesting. It's not a lot like of the other ones out there. You know, there's a hero kind of like in D&D, but then there's also armor and a weapon, and there doesn't really seem to be a normal resource system in it. And so you're interested. Or maybe you're a player who already owns the deck and you've never really looked into the lore of the character. You know, you're preoccupied with the competitive, card table scene, and that's cool. I get it. But now, you want to know a little bit more about him. Well, a little bit of Chris Angel mind freak inside the mind. So not only in this series are we going to dive into the heroes and their lore and background and what makes them tick, we're also going to talk a little bit about the deck, which will help you out to decide whether this deck is right for you, if it's been one you've kind of been looking at, but don't really want to commit your money to it in 2022. And it may even give you some tips and tricks on how to beat it when you see it across the table from you. A little inside baseball. But if you get that, keep it under your hat. So to start off our journey through the heroes of Rathe, we're actually going to start with one of the most iconic characters in the entire game. They're in the original Welcome to Rathe. It was a lot of people's first hero, a lot of people's first favorite hero, and it's the OG warrior queen waifu herself. Oh yes, we're talking about Dorinthea Ironsong. So Dorinthea was actually born in Solana, which is right smack dab center, right in the middle of Rathe there. It's kind of like your epitomal good guy city. It's a bunch of people, do-gooders wanting to work together for the greater good under the guidance of their god Sol, thus Solana. Duh. And the idea behind the city is that it's this utopia of knowledge and learning. It's like the tropey good guy center. This is the type of place where if you're walking down the street and you stub your toe and you're just like, son of a some guard would run up to you and he'd be like, halt. You have broken the law. Pay the fine. In this city, there was actually a family of blacksmiths called the Ironsongs. They'd been blacksmiths for generations and generations, and in this family was born Dorinthea. Dory grew up pretty much working at her parents' blacksmithy. At the smithy? She grew up working at the smithy, and she would tend to her chores there, and then when she was done in the afternoon, she'd actually go next door where she lived next to an inn, where there'd be travelers from far and wide, going on their pilgrimages to Solana, and she'd hear their stories about how crazy their lives were. And the lady that ran this inn was like a former warrior named Minerva. Pretty cool lady. We'll hear more about her later. These stories were all well and good, but Dory kind of knew what her lot in life was. She came from this long line of blacksmiths, so she's gonna be a blacksmith, or so she thought. You see, Solana has this thing called the Awakening. When you're 8 years old, they kind of set you on your task for your life, or what you're gonna strive towards. You go in this room just full of stuff, just like everything in there. So like, if you were a plumber, there'd be like the little red hat and the overalls, and you'd... Yahoo! But no, whatever your profession was, whether you're gonna be a warrior, weapons would suddenly light up, and you go, hey, that's pretty neat, and you'd find your thing. Or you're a blacksmith, hammer and tongs. This all happens at the age of 8, and Dory goes in there at the age of 8, and she's just kind of looking around, and it's really dark in there, and she's just kind of looking for the hammer and tongs so they can light up, and she can go about her business. But then something weird happens. Instead of blacksmith gear, all the swords in the room started to light up, and they just started spinning like crazy fast around her. And they're just going, and they're like... flying around, and while they're doing it, she's just looking at them all, and it just gets brighter and brighter, and then she notices one particular sword. It's particularly elegant, particularly beautiful. It was the Dawn Blade, and she grabs that thing right out of the sky, and then boom, the rest of those swords just... shattered down to the ground. Just like my Uncle Mark when he's 14 beers in at the good old Chili's. Mark, we talked about this. Please, get in touch with the family. We want to help you. the people running this are amazed, and they immediately make this announcement. They're like, we have this child sword prodigy on our hands, and she is going to join the Hand of Soul. And everybody's like, oh my god, the Hand of Soul. Oh my. I know all of you are like, okay, what's the Hand of Soul? Well, the Hand of Soul is just pretty much this order of knights that Soul has. They work as the Hand of Soul. Oh, a little on the nose there, LSS. But, I mean, it works. With this, Dory starts training for the Hand. Day in, day out. While you were reading books, she was studying the blade. While you were going on dates with that lady Barbara from the co-op, she was studying the blade. She's going out there and she's tearing it up. And she keeps this training up for 6 years. And along the way, she makes a few friends, but throughout those 6 years, the friends kind of start taking their job a little bit more seriously than Dory. You know, Dory's got that classic child prodigy thing going on where like, oh, I'm naturally good at this. I don't have to try ever. Ha ha ha. Wonder what that's like. After these 6 years, she gets promoted at the Festival of Laurels, which is this big, gigantic celebration that Soul has, into a squire. And now that she's a squire, she gets put into a party. Now this party consists of her, a scholar, a few other squires, some knights, and a Templar. And a Templar is this super badass warrior that has this like porcelain mask on that doesn't even show who they are. And Dory's Templar is Hala. Now Hala is actually a pretty cool lady. You know, she kind of takes Dory under her wing. Like,
hey, I got you. No one's ever gonna hurt you. You'll be okay.
Hala takes Dory under her wing, kind of talks to her a bit, you know, will spar with her, show her the ropes, kind of give her the rigmarole about everything. And it's actually going pretty good. They go around to all these villages on the outside of Seoul, and they just help them with odd jobs or stopping local bandits or just making sure everything is going on the up and up. They're keeping the peace. And then one day this guy comes up to him from this other village, and he's like, yo, I'm from the village over the way, and our village just got bodied by these things from the Savage Land. You're probably wondering what the Savage Land is, and it's kind of like Jurassic Park turned up to 11. I mean, there's carnivorous plants, giant bugs, giant beasts, and dinosaurs, and all sorts of that's running out there. But no Jeff Goldblum. Instead, you get me shirtless. Life finds a way. These attacks from the Savage Lands continue on for a while, and sometimes they're able to get there in time and stop them. Other times they get there and everybody's just been, like, brutalized. And other times they get there and everybody's missing without a trace. Just like when my dad left to go get that pack of Newport 100s and never returned. They actually keep doing this for 5 more years, just trying to stop all this incurment? I don't know if that's a word. All of this. They do this for 5 more years, keep trying to stop all of these beasts coming over from the Savage Lands, and they finally get a message from the higher-ups, and they say, hey, you're going in. You're going to the Savage Lands. Brother! They go into this forward camp that they have in the actual Savage Lands themselves, and they kind of just do their own thing there, they help out a bit, and one day they go out and patrol, and they come back, and it's just like all those villages. Everyone's gone, there was clearly a fight that went on. Dory's like, hey, let's go find them, and the commander's like, I got a better idea. You stay here, and we'll just guard the camp. Naturally, Dory isn't very jive with this, so she in the middle of the night goes AWOL, brother. She sneaks off in the middle of the night into the forest to go find these people. She can't find much, but she can find some tracks, like bloody tracks. The best. And ends up stumbling into a camp of sleeping brutes. Now, if you've seen KO or you've seen Rhinar, you know what a brute is. They're these giant orc troll sort of things that are just like barbarians and will like pop your head right off your body. Well, she sees them all sleeping and a few prisoners nearby. She's like, this is great. I'm just gonna go in there. I'm gonna save my friends. It'll be fine. And she turns around, and lo and behold, there's one behind her.
Oh, and he's mad.
Dory's gonna do her best to try to get out of this one, but then just then, out of the underbrush, busts Hala and everybody else. Apparently they were kind of privy to what was going on, and they help Dory, and they're like, let's get everyone and get out of here. But then things get way worse again, and 9 more brutes show up, and it's just a full-on skirmish, bloodbath battle, and they're forced to take a tactical retreat. This tactical retreat is so bad that they can't even capture back the previous captives that the brutes had taken, and they lose some people along the way. They get back to the camp and everyone is badly injured, people are missing, 4 people are dead, and Hala is nowhere to be found. Dory's kind of freaking out, and everybody is giving her the evil eye because she's pretty much responsible for all of this. And then Hala comes out of the woods. She's not looking good. She's kind of bleeding out. They stick her on a stretcher, and they send everyone back to Solana. Now, the homecoming naturally isn't a happy one for Dory. Everyone's really mad at her. They get back to town, eyes are downcast, and she turns in her armor. She's still a squire, but she's done. She goes back to her house and kind of picks up where she left off before the awakening, helping her parents, helping Minerva. Minerva tries to comfort her at one point, telling her that it was all good what happened because, she was trying to do the right thing. Which is kind of maybe not something you say to someone that's responsible for the deaths of 4 people, but, who am I to say? For the next 2 years, Dory continues training and sparring, but beyond that, she's really not doing much with the Hand of Soul. She'll keep going to the festivals and see friends promoted, and she's happy for them, but she knows that it was never really in the cards for her. Or was it? On her 21st year, she gets summoned back by the Hand, specifically by one Templar named Hala. Yep, the same lady that pretty much almost died because of her. And upon meeting her, Hala actually looks pretty okay. It looks like she's healed up all right. She puts her hand on Dory's shoulder, and she says one thing to her. Are you ready to prove yourself?
Boy.
The Solstice of Laurels commences that year, and Dory's there, and Dory's getting promoted. And she walks up, and the Grand Magister, who's like the head honcho dude, not only promotes her to a knight, but he promotes her to a lieutenant, which is crazy. It's unheard of. Also, LSS doesn't really tell us what the big difference is between a regular knight and a lieutenant, but the context clues are there to say that it's a pretty frickin' big deal. With this accomplishment, Dory takes a solemn oath that she will stand by and guard Solana, and she will no longer take her duties lightly as she once did. So that's pretty much Dory's origin story, but where is she now? Well, there's a battle going on between Solana and the Demonastery right now. Now, the Demonastery is another location in Rathe, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like an evil monastery. Ooh. They're bringing the fight to Solana. They've been opening these rifts to this ancient evil realm that's like called Irathiel or Irathiel. It's hard to pronounce. There's like a lowercase I and a thingy and then a capital A. Anyways, it's a little difficult. Point is, they're using it to bring these monsters out and fight Solana. So Dory's at this battle for Solana on Morlock Hill, and she's trying to get to this rift, supposedly the last rift, to close it. And she's fighting through all these monsters, and she's about to get bodied by these huge demons, and who shows up but Minerva to help her out, which is awesome. So they fight their way to the rift, they're trying to stop everything, and right out of the rift pops this gigantic necromancer dude with these like gross ribcage things. And he's fighting Dory, and he summons all these like zombos, and the zombos grab Dory, and she's like, ah! She's about to die. Minerva comes up, she stabs the necromancer, and it's super sweet, and you're like, oh, he's dead. But he's just like, well, didn't hurt. Turns around, grabs her, and chucks Minerva in the portal to the ancient evil realm. Well, needless to say, when you see a loved one get thrown into a portal to an ancient evil realm, Dory's kind of pissed. So she goes Super Saiyan and gets crazy radiant. She's like, ah! And she goes nuts. And the zombos all melt because they can't stand the radiance. And she walks up and she stabs the necromancer. And you're like, oh, that did it. We got him. And then he's just like, didn't hurt. And he walks through the portal and the portal closes. And that's kind of the end of it. Yeah. And that's pretty much Dory's story. It's ongoing, so it's an abrupt ending, but it's one that we're going to keep learning more and more as we go. And I'm really excited to see what LSS does with this. They're doing a great job with their fiction. Now, you'll probably be like, hey, yeah, Glegg, that's all well and good, but I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. I want to know how to play the deck. I want to play the cards. All right, we'll get there. The name of the game with Dory here is that you're going to pretty much 100% be focused on the Dawnblade. Your deck, it's all attack reactions, it's all defense reactions. You'll maybe have one regular attack in there through Nourishing Emptiness just to get a larger hand for the next turn to really go all out. But for the most part, in all modern Dories right now, you're playing mainly attack reactions. Dory's ability essentially makes it that if you connect with the Dawnblade and deal damage, you're actually allowed to attack with that same weapon again, which is pretty much unheard of in most decks, being able to attack with the same weapon twice. It's important to note that this does not give the weapon go again, it just means you can attack with it again. You're gonna have to find go again some other way there, pal. Take it easy. But cutting one out of two of the things out of the process is pretty good. Now, in addition to this, it synergizes really well with the Dawnblade, because the Dawnblade says if you connect twice with it, or deal damage twice with it in a turn, you are going to put a 1/1 counter on it. It's going to go from, not 1/1, this isn't magic, what are you doing? You're going to be able to put a +1 counter on it, bringing it from 3 power to 4 power. This can kind of get out of hand really quickly, especially in the later game as you keep snowballing your opponent. And if they're not smart and they don't block right, you're just going to be coming in each turn for 7, and you're not even pumping the sword at that point. It's a really good ability, but one thing to keep in mind is there's a little caveat on both of those. You got to connect with the other opponent. You got to deal that damage to them. If you can't do that and they block you out, you don't get to attack with the weapon again. You don't get to put that little +1 counter on it. In fact, if the opponent blocks you out completely with the Dawnblade, you'll lose your +1 counters, and it sucks. To circumnavigate this issue, the deck is primarily, as said, attack reactions. You're attacking with the Dawnblade, you're letting them block how they want, and then you're pumping it with an attack reaction in the combat phase. There's even a few other really cool combat tricks that some of the cards in your deck can give you, like Twinning Blade, which pretty much gives your weapon that can attack with it an additional time ability that Dory has, but you don't need to hit with it. This gives you more flexibility for your attacks, letting you go tall or wide. Say it again. This essentially lets you, if your opponent underblocks you, push your damage over, give it go again, and then attack with the sword a second time. Or, if they're blocking you out really well, you can keep pushing that damage to go really tall and make sure you connect at least some damage that turn, even if you don't get go again. This is really good because it's kind of putting the tougher decisions in your opponent's hand. You're saying, hey, you have to decide how to block this. I'm just going to answer whatever you put down, but you're the person that's going to set the tempo for this because I don't care, I'm just going to swing with the sword every turn. That's also kind of a bad thing because they pretty much know what you're going to be doing every turn. If you're not attacking with the Dawnblade, you're probably not doing anything. Warrior also gets some cool stuff in the defense reaction like Steel Blade Shunt. If you're blocking a weapon, it'll deal 1 damage to them. This is great for Ninja or Rune Blade or Guardian, and it's won me quite a few games in my day. Another really neat thing about Dory is that her armor and most of the other warrior armor is goated. It's insane. Like, a lot of 2-block and a lot of really, really good abilities put on them. Like, Courage of Bladehold blocks for 2, and you can pop it to give your swords attacks... No, to give you... Help me. It blocks for 2, and you can pop it to make your sword attacks free that turn. And none of it has that ridiculous blade break bull. Oh yeah, I'm looking at you, Ranger. LSS, stop making blade break armor. We don't want it. No one wants it. It hurts our feelings really bad. Sorry, I got carried away. Played too much Ranger for a really long time. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention another variant of Dory, the Axe's Dory or Saber's Dory. They're two different things, but they operate pretty much the same way, so I'm going to lump them into each other when explaining them. The name of this one is to just really mid-range outvalue your opponent. You know, you're reusing Valiant Dynamo each turn, which makes that if you attack with weapons twice, then you get your resource or your block back. Pretty good. Your goal is to pretty much block with as much as you can and still put out damage each turn consistently. Slow and steady consistency is the name of the game. And by the end of the game, hopefully you can nickel and dime them to death and you win. It's always a grind though, so if you play this one, it's a little grindier, but it's really satisfying to keep blocking with Valiant Dynamo each turn and essentially go +1 health each time. Dory's a really fun deck. As said, she kind of makes your opponent decide how they want to play against it. She kind of acts as like a litmus test for the whole format to see if you can really be up to snuff to fully, you know, grasp the combat step. Historically in the game, Dory was great. Like, she was coming out of the gate hot and swinging, and people didn't really know what to do, so she was taking down a ton of events. But as time has gone on, people have become to understand Dory a little bit better. You know, the card pool deepened for a lot of other heroes, and they got some abilities that Warrior doesn't have access to. So she's kind of fallen off a little bit in CC.
Might be time to take her out to pasture.
No, Pa. She's my fab hero. I'll do it.
In Blitz, however, she may not be the top dog anymore, but she can consistently put up some wins, and she does pretty well overall over the format. She's actually the deck that I first placed in a skirmish with and a top 8'd, and I was over the moon. I'd been losing for like 5 months because I really am that bad and just couldn't get a win. And then I brought Dory, and I got 3rd, and I was living high off the hog. I'm really glad Dory was the deck that brought me there. Anyways, that's really all I have. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video all the way through. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe, click that thumbs up button, even hit the bell if you want to know when we make more of these, because we will be making more of them. You know, we also do some Twitch streaming on Tuesdays, and we also have the good old Gleg Snack Twitter account. Feel free to join me there. Have a blast with all the fab Twitter pals out there. Y'all know who you are. Let me know in the comments, do you like how the deck plays? Do you think that Dory is underappreciated? Do you think she's the true fab waifu? Or do you think that Dory is just Garbaggio and a terribly written character? Whatever your opinion, feel free to leave it in the comment. Would really like to know. Thanks for checking it out, and see you in the next one.